Today we're going to be talking about a subject near and dear to my heart, and that is sunflower sea stars. Sunflower stars are known to be likely a keystone species, and what that means is if you take this certain species out of the ecosystem, then things are likely going to collapse. And that's exactly what happened about a decade ago when this perfect storm of events happened and created this whole shift in the ecosystem. It started with something called sea star wasting syndrome, which heavily impacted a lot of different sea star species, but it most heavily impacted the sunflower sea star. Their population decreased by over 90%. In some areas, they are now considered locally extinct because they just cannot be found in that area anymore. Around the same time, there was also a marine heat wave nicknamed the Blob, where sea surface temperatures were abnormally high. So with the onset of sea star wasting syndrome and the marine heat wave, this triggered a regime shift in kelp forest ecosystems from kelp forest to urchin barren. And this is because sunflower stars, as I mentioned, they're a keystone species. And one of the reasons for that is because they eat purple sea urchins. And purple sea urchins eat kelp. So with this huge die-off in sunflower stars, that allowed the purple sea urchins to really explode in their population. They came out of their little burrows that they usually hide in, and they ate all of the kelp. A lot of scientists have been working on this issue. A few different labs across the entire West Coast have been trying to raise baby sunflower stars to maybe try to re-release them in places. That's still all very up in the air. But there have also been some increased sightings of sunflower stars in the wild in places like Canada, Washington, and a little bit more often in Oregon. Last week, I was heading up to Washington to visit family and friends, and I had seen that there had been a couple of sunflower sea stars sighted in Seattle. And luckily, when I was coming, there were low tides. So as soon as I got there, I went to the place where the sunflower stars were sighted, and I decided to look for them myself because I'd only ever seen one in the wild before, and that was in Canada last summer. This topic is really near and dear to my heart. I love sunflower stars, and I really wanted to see some for myself in Seattle, which is near where I grew up. So come with me to Seattle and see if we can find these sunflower stars. We've been looking for about an hour. We saw all of these really cool things. We saw some sea cucumbers, which are relatives of sea stars. We also saw a bunch of ochre stars, but those were not the sea stars we were looking for. We were looking for the sunflower star, which is a lot larger and has way more arms. The ochre stars are a pretty typical star that only have 5 arms, but the sunflower star can have up to 24 arms. So you'll know it when you see it. As I mentioned, we were looking under every single rock and every crack and crevice. And finally, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something that was a different color than the ochre stars. It was definitely a sea star. And when I got a closer look, I realized it had way more than 5 arms. And it was, in fact, a sunflower star. It was really deep under this rock, so I didn't get the best look at it, but you can see all of these tiny little tube feet moving around, which are little suction cups that they use to walk around. All of its legs are kind of clumped together here, but I'm imagining it probably has about 20 arms. It's really hard to tell. Very excited we had accomplished our mission, but I knew that there had been a sighting of 2 the day before at this beach, so we did not give up and we set out to find the second sunflower sea star. We went over to the area of the beach where there were a bunch of beach naturalists that work for the Seattle Aquarium, and immediately they knew exactly where 2 sunflower stars were. So I had actually found a third that people hadn't seen the day before, which is even better news that there are 3 at this beach instead of 2. But the naturalists showed us the 2 different sunflower stars. They were a lot easier to see. I think they were larger. One of them was right side up, so you could see its back and all of the different spines and pinchers and gills that are on the back of their body. And the other one was upside down, like the first one we found, giving us a chance to see all of their creepy little tube feet moving around, trying to find a rock or something to grab onto. So at the end of the day, we found 3 sunflower stars. This is amazing news. It's surprising for me, especially that they were found in Seattle of all places, and not somewhere like on the coast where there's less disturbance. And I think that is even more hope that the species could possibly recover. It is possible that it's just, a good year and we won't see something like this happen again next year, but any sighting of a sunflower star is a good sighting, and I'm hopeful that we'll start to see them in more places like in the southern range where they used to live, like Oregon and California and maybe even Mexico. So thanks for coming along. Make sure when you're tide pulling you keep a lookout for these sea stars. Again, they can have up to 24 arms. They get very large. And if you do happen to see one, it's awesome if you can report the sighting. I will put a link in the description for that website where you can report the sightings. It's very beneficial to the scientists that are working on this problem, and it's a great way to be involved in science yourself as a citizen or community scientist.